In this video, I'm going to be discussing the upcoming transit of Jupiter in the sign of Gemini. So Jupiter is going to enter Gemini on May 25th of 2024. I'm currently recording this on May 14th, and Jupiter will enter Cancer on June 9th of 2025. So we have a good year of Jupiter in the sign of Gemini, a good 12 months of this particular transit. And so Jupiter in Gemini is a really interesting placement. Jupiter really likes to be in the sign of Gemini because it gives it a bit of a different flavor. It gives it a bit of a different feel because Jupiter is normally used to big, expansive ideas and learning. And with Gemini, now we have the opportunity to really delve into the more specific data pointing ideas and information. And so it's a good opportunity to now zoom in on the smaller picture and see the individual trees for the forest, and we can really expand our mind. Because there's only so much to look at when we're looking at it from the big picture. What about zooming in and seeing the individual details? This particular transit, and plus Jupiter in the sign of Virgo, which I have, um, both of these transits, Jupiter and Gemini and Jupiter and Virgo, are wonderful because we have the opportunity to have a balance between Jupiter, the bigger mind, and Gemini and Virgo, the smaller mind. And we can really hone in on the details of things very well with Jupiter and Gemini and in Virgo. So these present really great opportunities for us to delve into the depths of things with these particular transits. And so we're going to be talking today about Jupiter's transit in Gemini. So Jupiter is the great gas giant in astrology. It is the gas planet. It is so huge, so expansive. It represents expansion, mental expansion, bodily expansion, and it represents the feeling of abundance. Um, and so the feeling of joy, the feeling of bliss, the feeling of wonderful feeling of beauty all around us, and um, pure living on higher vibrations, living on high frequency. Jupiter represents what brings you joy, what brings you up to, what you can do to raise your frequency is a concept that is very well associated with Jupiter. And so the feeling of gratitude and having a lot, of having a bounty of a lot of things in your life. And I feel like personally, I am one of the least inner abundant people on this earth right now. And I feel like everyone walking around me is way more inner abundant than I am. It doesn't matter how many external things you have that are abundant around you. What matters is an inner sense of abundance. And so, I have Jupiter retrograde in my natal chart, and it really invites me to look inside myself and look at the details inside myself to see what needs changing, what needs looking at, and what needs evaluating. And so that's an invitation with Jupiter retrograde and in Virgo in my birth chart. So, I've done a lot of things in the past that I regret. I used to regret not finishing the books, but now I don't regret that. What I do regret is compulsively going over my the individual channels, because in July of 2022 I was going through my channels compulsively, one after another. I was I clicked on a channel, watched a little bit of a video. I clicked on another channel, watched a little bit of a video on that channel, and my intention was to try to narrow down, because I had so many subscriptions at the time. I wanted to know what I was watching and narrow it down. And I ended up regretting that, because that compulsively doing it over and over again depleted and tainted my curiosity with discovering new channels. I also regret deleting my watch history on YouTube. I also regret deleting my original YouTube channel, which began in December 2018. And I regret deleting a lot of videos that I made. So I've done a lot of things that have tainted my sense of inner abundance, and hopefully over time that sense of inner abundance will come back and return to me. But I kind of have affirmed in my mind that I am one of the least inner abundant people on this planet at this time. And so Jupiter in Gemini hopefully will wake up that curiosity of, wanting to explore, wanting to learn, wanting to do all of these things. And so now we are in the month of May, and Jupiter will move into Gemini here pretty soon here. And so we'll see what happens. So, um, looking at what we're going to be looking at here, Jupiter represents good luck and good fortune. So, wherever Jupiter is in your natal chart represents where you gain the greatest luck, and abundance, as I said before. And so, um, really taking a look at this. And so where we experience blessings in our lives is also Jupiter ruled. It rules our spiritual ideas and pursuits. It rules self-growth. It rules spiritual growth. It rules morality, ethics, and the law. Those are also Jupiterian areas. Fun and joy is also represented by Jupiter. Faith and hope, growth, higher learning, higher education. That's a Sagittarius area. Enthusiasm is also Jupiterian subject. So now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this particular video. Now we're going to look at Jupiter in Gemini. So this transit is going to really invite us to connect with people in our everyday life, connect with our neighbors, connect with our siblings. That's a big thing. Connect with our family. So connecting with people in our everyday life, sharing information, exchanging ideas, and having meaningful conversations. Learning is also a really big thing with this, and also a willingness to learn many different things through reading it, through watching it, through going to a museum. The thing about Gemini is that it likes to learn many different things. It's sort of a jack of all trades, but a master of none, if you will. So, it likes to sample many different things. So we could find ourselves wanting to sample this thing over here and that thing over there. Gemini is like a butterfly. The butterfly flits from flower to flower, and like a bee goes from one flower to another. And so Gemini is really about, learning one thing and another thing. It likes to diversify itself. It likes to learn many different things. It likes to be well-rounded and versatile. It's very adaptable. Gemini is the mutable air sign, which represents its adaptability and changeability. It likes to change quite a bit. Gemini is an energy that likes to be well-versed in many different subjects, many different topics. So our mind opens and expands. And so we could want to learn many different things. Um, and so communication is a big area here as well. We want to communicate. When we communicate our ideas, we gain luck. When we express ourselves verbally, we get luck during this particular time. Open-mindedness is another thing, when we're open-minded, when we're willing to learn new things. We can also see many sides of an argument. We can also have a certain detachment about us during this time because air is a detached element. It's sort of not emotionally connected with what is going on. It sort of rises above the fray. And so now with Jupiter and Gemini, we can see this side of the argument, that side of the argument, and so forth. Um, and we can understand the many different perspectives. We can be like an atom that splits up to fragments into all these different parts with Jupiter and Gemini. And so versatility and curiosity is a big thing here. Being in the know, being very connected with what is going on in our immediate environment, because Gemini represents the details of our immediate environment. I like to think of Gemini as stimulation, like the books on your shelf, the desk in your room, the people in your environment, your community, your close circle of friends, those kind of bread and butter elements of the Gemini environment. And so there could be an expansion with upgrading transportation and communication systems. Maybe new phones could come out that are boosting the market up big time. Um, new vehicles of transportation could really come out. New cars, new trucks, new planes, new automobiles, new vehicles of different kinds. We could also see a rise in um, when it comes to mailing and letters and those kinds of things like that. So writing, this is also great for writing out our ideas. If we don't want to speak to our ideas, well, there's another option. We can write down our ideas, journaling, having a journaling practice will be really, really wise during Jupiter and Gemini to really sit down with a pencil and paper and write down our ideas to express ourselves. During Jupiter and Gemini, we need not to hold those things in, not to bottle those things and deny those things from our consciousness. We need to write those things and we need to express those ideas and those feelings that we have. Editing could also be a big thing here, networking with other people, teaching. And it's interesting because Sagittarius is the teacher sign of the zodiac. Sagittarius has all this wisdom and wants to embellish things, and wants to teach and preach and share its wisdom. But Gemini is the student of life. Gemini just wants to learn. Gemini has an endless appetite for learning inspiration. I have two planets in Gemini, and at least I did have that before I did all the things that I regret. Hopefully that can get reinvigorated and revived during Jupiter in Gemini. Um, and so, so as I said, teaching, and learning, um, because Gemini is the student and really has an interest in learning. Journalism could be a big thing here. Marketing could be another thing. Learning different languages, diversifying yourself, learning new languages. This is could be a great time to really sharpen up your vocabulary, sharpen up your speech, learn new words, improve your communication style, maybe learning a new language such as Italian or Spanish or, French or something like that. Um, and so this could be good for, as I said, improving speech and communication skills. Upgrading machines, and devices that keep us connected and informed about the world. Like, where we get our news could, be upgraded and changed. So this transit, I really want you to put a pin in this because this transit, Jupiter and Gemini, is like it's testing the ground. It's setting us up for it. It's preparing us for 2025 because what's going to happen in July of 2025 is that Uranus, the planet of the higher mind, the planet of revolution and innovation and new inventions and things like that will enter the sign of Gemini. And so galactics, things having to do with communications, things having to do with learning could really be upgrading revolutionized. So if Jupiter expands Gemini, Jupiter expands whatever it touches. It just magnifies whatever it touches. Uranus revolutionizes whatever it touches. And so, it's so opportune that Jupiter comes in before Uranus comes later because Jupiter is an inner planet and more inner planet, and Uranus comes further down in the solar system. And Jupiter enters Gemini in 2024, and then Uranus enters Gemini in 2025. It just, works out so well. So I just think that that's really, really neat. Um, and so, um, now upgrading, as I said before, so being social, openly and friendly, being, neighborly and things like that. Um, so being more social. Now is the time to be more social, to interact more with people, in your environment. Um, and doing those kinds of Gemini things. So the shadow side of Jupiter and Gemini can be just a sense of superficiality. Um, just getting into all these different subject areas because you're interested in them and not digging deep into one, two, or three different subject areas. Um, spreading yourself too thin with this project over here, this project over there, and those kind of things like that. So learning when it comes to, what you decide to learn is diversified, but you want to make sure that it's not too diversified, where then you get yourself, too involved with too many different things. Gossip could be another downside. Um, Now an upside is we can learn information, we can organize information, very efficiently with Jupiter and Gemini. Brand new ideas. This is a time for brand new ideas, listening to new ideas and sharing new ideas, novelty, variety, um, cleverness, being very intelligent, being very smart, data collecting. Um, and so we value the intellect at this time. We value information and learning. So another downside can be lack of follow through with starting this book, not finishing it. Without digging into it enough to where, because there's a difference between, oh, I've read this book enough and I just don't like it and I don't resonate with it. But when we start this book and then we are interested in that book, but we're also interested in another book, that's what I'm talking about by lack of follow through with something. Yes, give up on something if it doesn't resonate with you. Like I was reading a book, it's called Angela's Ashes, and I couldn't follow it anymore. It was just a bunch of random things happening, random words, random sentences, random events, and I just couldn't follow it anymore. So I'm deciding to stop, giving myself permission to move on and read the book Astro Guides by Sonia Choquette. So, and then I'm going to read books by the author Brandon Sanderson after that. So, anyway, now, biting off more than we can chew is another downside. And too much stimulation, information overload, being overstimulated, like stimulation coming out of our mind, coming out of our ears, and that kind of thing. Um, Being just overwhelmed with the amount of information that could be opened up to us during this time. Um, and So another downside is fickleness, changing our mind, indecision, not knowing what decision, because the downside with Gemini energy is it has so many different sources and pieces of information, but what are we going to do with that information? Where are we going to go? Sagittarius opposite Gemini is the archer. It is the, um, we have an arrow and we're pointing at this particular target. We're pointing at this particular direction. We have a goal, we have a plan, we have a desire that we want to reach. Um, and we're very decisive. We trust our intuition, things like that. And so it's important to look also, the very last thing I'm going to say about this is, you know, Gemini energy can have us look at all different sides and look at all different angles of things and many different pieces of information, but we want to, make a decision in the end. It's very spontaneous also. So where can you invite more spontaneity into your life? You also want to pay attention to the health of your hands, arms, shoulders, and lungs because those are all Gemini areas of the body. All right, so that's what I have to say on Jupiter and Gemini, everybody. I really hope you found this informative and interesting. And if you did, please be sure to hit the like button. It helps to get this video out into the algorithm so that more people who are interested in this can discover it. You can share it as well. Um, and I invite you to subscribe to my channel if you like what goes on in this channel, talking about astrology, spirituality, things like that. So that's it, everybody. Bye for now.